Well, that was strange. Not really sure what caused us to go offline there. So that was a little odd. It may have been Digby. It could very well have been Digby. So what I did is just created a part 2 and just jumped right back in. We just got to get Paul back in. Came at a really bad time. We had a lot of people watching too. That sucks. It's okay though. You know, it happens sometimes, guys. You do what you can do. Life gives you lemons. You make the lemonade. Yeah, I mean, I think it had something to do with Digby popping in and out, but
Yeah. Yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it just to see Digby for a moment.
it's okay. I mean, uh, as it's known with all content creators across all genres of and styles of shows, everybody has a hiccup and a glitch every now and then.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let it fill back up a little bit, because obviously we were about to tell the story, and I don't want people to miss out on that if they were like looking forward to hearing that. So let me pull the image back up. We'll just kind of jump right back into it. We apologize. Obviously, there was just like a little hiccup there. We think it was because of Digby coming in and out, and yeah, what can you do? Bastard. Even when he's not running the show. I'm just kidding. I love you, Digby.
We do love our
So,
Digby.
yeah, I mean, it's like I'm over it, right? It's not a big deal. Thank you to everybody that was here during the first broadcast and then coming back here. We really appreciate you being patient with us because sometimes there are hiccups that happen when you're doing things in a live stream setting. So we're filling back up. Right. So I was telling the story. So I was driving. So this was on Thursday. Was it Thursday? God, like this whole week became crazy after this happened. But so this was, yeah, it was Thursday. So it was on the 7th. So I was driving home from work. This happened at approximately 7:22 p.m. Eastern time. What I did after it happened is I made like a little video notation of time, location, blah blah blah. I can't be specific to a T about the location because that's where I live. So, I don't want to give away my exact location for privacy reasons, but southern New Jersey. Okay, that's as far as we're gonna go. And no, Sandy, this was not ball lightning. uh, Definitely not ball lightning, which is very cool and an extraordinary phenomenon in of itself. But no, definitely not ball lightning. So so there's a back road that I can hit to get past all of the lights in my town. And when I pop off of that road, I'm only like 45 seconds away from my neighborhood. Bang a left, boom. So I get on this back road, and what it is it's a really thin gravel road surrounded by trees. At the very end of it, there's like a couple houses, and then there's a VFW that's on the left. But other than that, it's just trees. Like you're just in the back of the woods. Yeah, hey, what's up, Sarah? I do believe Sarah is also from my neck of the woods. So yeah, shout out to South Jersey. That's damn right. So I'm driving along, and now mind you, the past 3 to 4 weeks haven't been the best for me emotionally, mentally, and such. I felt like I was gonna crack. Like I started losing like my confidence and like my content. Just all of these weird things were happening. I don't know if I was like burning something off spiritually. Who knows, right? There's all types of energy that flows in and out of human beings that we probably don't understand. But I just felt so low, and frustrated, and just angry at everything. And I don't like getting like that because I don't want to be someone
We had
that
a mini
complains.
intervention for you.
Right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you guys saw how angry I got. I sent Paul and Digby a video when I was in the work truck and I was venting. And I just I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel my body didn't feel good, nothing felt good. Um I was just sad. It was, you know, depression definitely coming on. And so that's all going on. I'm driving home. It was a rough day at work. I was tired, and I'm just zoned out on the road. Like I had maybe like a podcast on. And this part's hard for me to explain because it just it's just yeah, I can't really explain it. So I'm driving, and like all of a sudden I noticed, like I didn't see them like zoom in or pop it. No, I just noticed them. It's almost like I had been looking at them and just didn't realize they were there, and then they were there. It was a really weird sensation of like just realizing something is in front of you. And up in the distance, I see these two red lights moving really, really, really fast away from me. And I'm like, holy shit, that guy's driving fast. That's really dangerous on this back road. Like, and I'm not someone who like calls the cops for things like, but like he was moving so quickly that I'm like, he's gonna kill somebody or he's gonna kill himself, because at the end of this road is something that the people in my town call Dead Man's Curve. Very specific reason. I had a friend whose sister died on that curve. And there are other people who have gotten into accidents on this curve for a number of different reasons. Her accident was a result of weather, coming around that curve a little too quickly. Some people get distracted, obviously, with texting and cell phones and such. And it's like, you don't want to hit this curve going more than like 30. Like, you just don't want to do that. It's very dangerous. So I'm like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? Like, there could be somebody walking. So I'm like thinking about like calling the police and being like, yo, because it looked like he was, I mean, like if you're driving in a car, there are ways to estimate the speed of another vehicle. I was doing 45 and he was pulling away from me so quick. I'm just like, what the hell? Like, this guy's going over 100 miles per hour. Like, and it's obvious. But then it slows down. And I'm getting closer. And I get as close as about 5 car lengths. My best guess, best estimation. And I'm looking at it, and the first thing I notice is that the lights are too close together to be brake lights, because that's what I thought. I thought they were just like lights on a car, brake lights, but now I'm close, and I'm like, and there was a little bit of moisture on my windshields, like, so I'm just making sure I'm seeing things properly, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And what I see are these 2 red lights right next to each other, just like you guys see in the image. They are actually a little bit closer than what you see. And I'm looking at the ground underneath them, and I'm seeing that the light is reflecting off the ground, and I'm like, they're airborne.
There's no car there.
There's no car, right? Like, I'm like, they're just lights. So I had this really weird, like, distorted internal time moment where I'm like having like a dialogue with myself, where I'm like, okay, the phenomenon is here. It's in front of me. It's doing something, and I'm just going along. Now, this whole incident probably lasted no more than like a minute and a half at the most. And that's being courteous. It was probably more like a minute. And I'm watching it, and what it started doing was, now imagine both of these lights. They never pull away from each other. They're always like this, but it's moving as one object. And it started going and doing like figure eights, like just in the left lane, the other lane. It's just like it's just doing all sorts of shit. So now it's just like, okay, yeah, that is definitely not a car. Like, like, it's not a motorcycle. It's not a drone. It's weird. It's like, imagine if you're looking at that image I have up there. Imagine that there is a link between the 2 lights, but you just can't see it, right? Like, they're just there. Like, but they're connected. So I have some ideas about that. Like, maybe the reason it looks that way, but it is actually one object, is maybe if it's a higher dimensional object, maybe that's why some of it is missing. Like maybe I can't see some of it because it exists in a higher dimension and my eyes are not able to pick that up. Right. Like that's just an idea I have. Right. It could be that. It could be something different. It could be two objects working in unison. I have no idea. So it's doing this weird like figure eight motion, and then it sort of goes like this. It goes zoop, 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 like it looked like a pre-programmed maneuver. Like it started moving so straight that it was like impossibly straight. Like it looked computerized. I'm just like, holy shit. Like, no, I was saying to Paul before we went live, I'm like, no human being can drive a car that straight. And you're not gonna fly a drone that straight either. It's just impossible. Like between the different things that go on the ground and then in the air. But I mean, this thing was about 7 feet above the ground. So it's moving so straight that it was like startling. I'm like, how is it doing that? And it's frustrating, but it's funny, sort of. So now it's in that straight motion. I'm now at like 7 car lengths away, maybe. And I'm like, I'm keeping my eyes on it. I got my left hand on the wheel. My right hand lifts up and begins to reach over to go for the phone. Gone. Didn't fly away. Didn't do a poof. Didn't leave a trail.
Just gone.
This is the part that I really want to drive into people's heads, is that when I say gone, I mean it like vanished like instantly. Gone. Like it didn't leave an after image, nothing. It was just not there anymore. It's like I said this to Paul earlier. It's like if you watch like an episode of like I Dream of Jeannie or something, right? And she does her little head shake thing and something like appears on a table. Well, do that in reverse, right?
Yeah.
Like she makes something disappear and it's like you went into like Adobe Premiere and like deleted the frames that would have shown it leaving. Like it was I just never saw something like that before, and
which is meaningful because I mean, like when you hear other stories, like most of them say, "Oh, it just disappeared." A lot of them don't say it takes off in a certain direction, or some of them will, but like even David Fravor on the Tic Tac was saying, "Yeah," and suddenly it was just boop, gone.
Look who's
just
here!
Gone.
One of my favorite people in the UFO community, Marco Leal, who was James Fox's partner in researching the Varginha case and is from Brazil. Moment of Contact. You guys may know Marco from Moment of Contact. I interviewed Marco a while back on a previous show. Marco, thank you so much for being here, my friend. It's good to see you. I hope you and yours are doing well. I miss you, man. Hope all is well down there in Brazil. Love you, buddy. So this part, I got out of so I stopped my car and I got out and I started crying. I had like a really emotional moment. So it was a lot of different things in one. I was crying and I was like laughing because I'm crying because it had been such a frustrating, depressing month. But then it like released. It was like a fever breaking because of seeing this object. And I'm laughing out of like frustration of like, why didn't you let me film you, you son of a bitch? Like,
yeah,
but,
that's what I was telling you earlier. It's very much like when Chris Bledsoe was going through all of his stuff. He was at the rock bottom, and he just screamed out, "Yeah, I'm done with it. I don't want to deal with it anymore." And then they let him photograph him. They're like, "Okay, we'll let you show the world." That's when his call to action came. But it's almost
I'm
like
over
they
it.
knew you were messed up. Well, when you sent the video when you were so frustrated, and then suddenly this happens, it's just the weirdest timing. And not to mention, it's very reminiscent of what my experience was as far as when I was telling things to do a figure eight, do a circle, do a triangle. I was like, man, next time you see these things, ask it to do something just to
Yeah, I
validate that
should
they're
have.
there.
I should have. But it gave me that still though, because when I reached over for my phone and then it did what it
Mhm.
did, it was kind of like, Tom, we know what you're doing. Bye. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm
Well,
like, ah,
well,
it's
apparently
all right.
he used to do that to Chris Bledsoe. Every time he tried to film it, they would just disappear. Just like you're saying, like a light switch going off until he asked them, like, "Look, can I take pictures of you? I'm not going crazy. I'm down." He was like, "I'm done with you. I'm never showing it again." And then they're like, "Okay, you can take pictures." And then now he's got thousands of films of them.
I saw what
So
I saw,
yeah.
experienced what I experienced. It's not the first time I've had an experience. The
Well,
timing, though.
according to the Pentagon report, you didn't see a thing.
See, and that's another reason why, like, I came into the show so angry and distraught by this. It's like, so
The
I
world
saw what I
is
saw,
insane by seeing these things, but they're perfectly all right.
and there are people that have medical conditions where they do hallucinate, right?
Mhm.
What, you think I've never been checked out before for my own well-being?
Yeah.
I carry none of those ailments with me. I
Well,
don't have anything that makes me see things like this. And there were physical things happening, right? Like the light reflecting off the road. There's a sensation there too. So I hadn't really talked about this part, but as I got closer to it, my hands felt like trying to think of the best way to describe this. You ever you ever you ever wake up like really tired and your muscles feel like a little lazy? Right? Like,
all the
and
time. Every
it's
day.
almost like tickly, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not tingly,
not tingling,
like
but, yeah.
not like your like circulation tingly like your hand fell asleep, but just kinda like you
It's
feel like
like
you feel like you gotta stretch them, right? Like,
yeah,
that's what
overactive
as I
nerve
got
endings.
closer to right, as I got closer to it, the tips of my fingers, it started to go from the tips of my fingers and kinda stopped a little bit before my wrist, and then when I pulled away, or it pulled away, I should say, as it, was moving further away from me, it dissipated. So as like muscle atrophy, sort of like that was happening as I got closer to it. And then so there was like, I don't know if that was like some sort of energetic force field around it. It just it was just really strange. Thank you, Marco. I can't even tell you how much that means to me, especially right now. I really deeply appreciate that, man. I'm doing my best and coming out of like a really crappy few weeks. So it's really nice to have you here along with everybody else in the chat. Paul, it was nice to have Digby jump in. But yeah, man, the timing on this is really weird. Like it really makes me think about like what these
I was
things
genuinely
are.
worried about you. Like, I was worried about I was like, "Man, I hope he's gonna be alright." I mean, we had talked on a chat, and you had sent a couple little videos over, like, just frustration just was on your face, I could see it, and then a couple hours later, you're like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "Wow, okay, okay."
Yeah,
But yeah.
it came at the right time. You know, and I can see why some people will have these experiences and be like, "Oh, that's God." You know what I mean? Or like,
It could,
especially
for
like
sure.
with Bledsoe, having that
Mhm.
religious connotation with it. I don't know. It's the unknown. Fringe, what is up? Any missing time that I perceived? No, I did not have any missing time
Friends.
that I perceived, at least, to be very specific. I did like I checked the clock and everything. Um, no, there wasn't any missing time. It was very much something that happened in real time. Now, what I will tell you guys is that the area that I live in is near a military base that back in 1977, I believe it was, the year that my parents graduated high school, ironically, there was allegedly a landing that happened at Fort Dix military base.
Mhm.
That's the military base that I'm near. And that there was a being there that had gotten shot. There's a lot to that story. It's been in only a couple books. I know it's in one of Leonard Stringfield's crash retrieval books. I tried to get in touch with the actual officer that allegedly fired the shot, but I don't know if he's alive, to be honest. Like, he was really, really old the last time I saw him speak up about this, but he had said that he would swear, like, he put his hand on the Bible, like, "This happened. This object landed on the base, beings got out, and we shot at them." Now that base, there were three separate base areas that used to be all separate. You have Fort Dix, you have McGuire Air Force Base, and then you have Lakehurst Naval. They're now all joined together as one like super base on the East Coast, which is now known as Joint Base MDL. So that's where that is now. There are some things that I'm doing in the background, trying to investigate what happened there. I'd like to eventually do a documentary film on it. It's just getting information about it has been extraordinarily difficult.
I was gonna say,
There's
I don't think
not a lot of
I've never
sources.
seen anything on that, like
Yeah,
the Fort
yeah.
Dix incident.
I have a friend whose father was a teenager at the time of this incident, and he swears up and down that he saw it that night. Like, so I just have one, corroborating witness. He was like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I saw it come down from my backyard and lower onto the base." Like he said he saw it. So it's
Was it
just
a triangle or something like that, or no? Was it
no,
similar to
no,
what you saw?
no, not anything like what I saw. It was apparently like a rounded like lenticular disc with and giving off a glow and that type of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, just it's a tough one. I had a phone call. You guys may know filmmaker Darcy Ware. We had a phone call yesterday. We would like to potentially hook up and do some work. He's he knows what we're doing with New Paradigm and everything, and he wants to do some documentaries with me. And obviously Digby and everybody that's included under our New Paradigm umbrella. And we're thinking about different subjects to cover. So this is one that I'm going to broach with him. He has something new coming out about USOs that I'm going to be checking out behind the scenes before it releases, which is really kind of him
That's
to send that over.
so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's crazy because I've always wanted to do a video about the
Yeah.
underwater stuff because I have some like on the record statements from people that I know personally, and I feel like if I hook up with him, and I think we may actually be able to put something together about the Fort Dix incident because no
That
one's touched it.
that would be really cool. Do you remember that
Uh,
that USO story that Lou Elizondo told with that test torpedo that they did? That was insane, and I'd love to know, like, have a really good study done on that or a really good documentary done on that.
I can tell you
I'll have to
that
reach out to James
I
Fox.
there is someone that I know through a family member of mine and some of the work that they do that deals with oceanography studies and such, kind of environmentally related to the health of the ocean and such, which is always important to the ecosystem. And they said that they were picking like we had sensors down in the ocean that were picking up objects doing like Mach 3 underwater back in like the 70s.
Yeah. Yep.
Like there's something down there for sure,
And
right? So
what's weird is that it's always tends to be the same spots too, like the Puerto Rican, trench, the one right off the big trench right off Puerto Rico, the Marianas Trench, the Mid-Atlantic Trench, like, all these things tend to happen over those specific areas, like,
for that
it's
one island, Catalina.
Catalina, exactly. So it's like there's certain spots in the ocean that are hot spots for this stuff, almost like there's an underwater base there.
It's almost as if things are happening, right? Like
Almost, yeah, but none
I've
of
heard a
that's
lot of
true, of course.
different reports. Yeah, none of it's true. I've heard
None of that's
that there's like the Tic Tacs actually come from
yeah,
like a housing unit thing. Like there's like a base under there that then releases something that and then that releases the Tic Tacs. Like there's oh my god, the stories I've
yeah,
heard. Oh man,
yeah.
some of them aren't public and some of them are. I'll tell you, there's one that I can tell you guys from one of the guys that I talked to that I can kind of touch on. He had told me at one point that on the East Coast somewhere that there is like he what did so he called it like he compared it to like a giant like 3D printer that there's this thing that's underwater that will basically fabricate and create these different
I
objects like
remember that.
morphology wise. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
What
and that
what's the other
they
guy's name?
but that they but he was really specific about it. He said that they actually they mine hydrogen out of the water for their own energy source, and it's just like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
bountiful.
he talked about and they were especially active when they were building the U.S. base in the Bahamas. He was talking about too, like they were trying to build underwater and pump the water out in one of these cables and such to it, and something kept cutting the cables. Like it was really bizarre.
That's really funny that you would bring that
Yeah.
up because the guy I talked to may or may not have mentioned something similar.
Hmm.
Like, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, there's
And
a lot of interesting things about USOs. Like I
I
feel like
want to
that's the
also,
untapped
yeah, go ahead.
area. Oh, I'm
It
sorry.
is. No, no, no. It definitely
Yeah.
is. I want to clarify though too that like when I say things like that, like I don't want to sound like I'm like gatekeeping or anything like that. But there are some people that I talk to that are working behind the scenes to try to get this shit out here, man. And they're private and they want to remain private and
Yeah.
they will disconnect from me, never trust me again, never speak to me again. And God knows what else could come of that if I were to disrespect their privacy. So
Yeah, of
I
course.
don't, you know what I mean? I apologize for the
100%.
fact that I can't clarify more. Ross Coulthart goes through the same thing. I mean, there's a
It's an
lot of
it's
us out here that go
it's
through
annoying
that.
from our side. From the
It's
government side,
really
it's
annoying.
annoying as
It's
hell too.
annoying, but put yourself in the shoes of someone that is privy to stuff like this, and
Yeah.
you have
Mhm.
a family to protect, and you have your interests, your income, and things to protect. Like they have to be really careful. And
Yeah.
I will not uproot someone's life. You know what I mean? They're just one part of the puzzle. It is not my job to do that. My job is to tell you guys what I hear, what I know, what I think, what I speculate on,
Yeah.
and to tell the stories that I have for you or am given in the best way possible, um, and to do it as respectfully as possible. If that gentleman ever came to me and said, "Hey, it's cool," guess what? Poof, I have a whole document typed up that I could tell you guys a lot.
We'll be the
Um,
first to know.
you guys would be the first to know. Also, and I don't normally do this too much during the show, but if you guys could just take a moment and leave a like and subscribe if you're having a good time here with me and Paul, and obviously Digby in spirit. We really greatly appreciate it. Share it. We want to create a nice big community and network of not only you guys here in the chat, but we're working to do as much collaborative work as possible with other content creators in this field, other UFO researchers. There's a lot of guys that I look up to. I love Richard Dolan. There's people that like Ross Coulthart. I mean, there's so many good people out here. Matt Ford of the Good Trouble Show, I think is just fantastic. That I was fortunate enough to speak with. Some of the guys over at Skinwalker Ranch I've had the pleasure of speaking to. Like, there's a lot of really nice people in this community, and at the end of the day, we're all just human beings, kind of just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. That's really it,
That's all
right?
it
Like
all
we
it
can
is. Yeah.
argue until the sun comes up, but I mean, there is
Yeah.
there is a truth out here that we're all trying to find.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to do, right? Like I have these experiences, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Sit back and ignore it?
Well,
You
the
know?
fact that you can talk about this story right now, like I would say, 10 years ago, if you would have said the story on YouTube in front of all these people, you'd have probably been looked at like a maniac. But now it's like,
Maybe,
okay, yeah,
maybe. Yeah, you're
not
right.
too long
Maybe
ago
more
that would have
so.
been, yeah. Now it's like, okay, there needs to be a conversation about this, and that's I think the whole point of New Paradigm is just getting the conversation normalized, getting it accepted, and getting it looked at.
Yeah,
That's to me
we want to
the whole
hold the
solution.
government accountable
Absolutely,
as well.
and I mean, the whole point of the show, I guess, is to talk about the Pentagon report that they could solve everything. If there's nothing to see here, then release everything, and that's the only, and they won't. So why? So you won't release stuff from 1947 because you think it's because there's a national security threat? That's ludicrous. If there's nothing to see there, so you make everything open source. You make everybody in the world look at it. You give it to the Soul Foundation. You give it to Avi Loeb and his foundation. So let them study it. Let them make the best course of action. Give some to Eric Weinstein. Finally, So to me, if there's nothing to see here, then there's no problem giving that data to everybody, and they can't
You
answer
said
that.
it. You
Yeah.
said it right there. That's it right there. Sandy has a really good question. What was the approximate size of the lights once I got close? If I had to guesstimate, if you go to a concert and they have like the giant beach balls that you bounce around, it was like that. Like they were like
That's big.
Like I'd have to hug it, right? So, decent. They were decent. Way bigger than a suitcase, smaller than a car though,
Mm.
technically. Like if you were to drop this thing in the middle of a car, you would still have like the hood and the back of the car sticking out with this like orb in the middle, if that makes sense, right? Like it was they were decently sized, bigger than me,
And I think it's cool too
bigger
that
than a person.
there's 2 of them and they're locked in position, which is cool.
Utterly locked, like they were like it was one single object with like an invisible bridge in between.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was beautiful. It
that's
was.
really
And the red light too. What's really interesting about UFOs I've noticed is that how many times in life have I seen the color red, right? Like, oh my god. Like let's see, YouTube logo. I mean, I can spot a million things around me that are red. But there was something about this red that was different, right?
etheric.
Like right, and same thing with the triangle, from my childhood. That was even weirder though. That had a different quality to it. It was like plasma, liquidy, and such. It was really, I still don't give that one justice. I don't even know how to recreate what I saw, but yeah, it's like that. There's this very like majestic aspect to it that's really hard to put into words, and you know, I have to come to terms with the fact that the only thing that I can do is tell you guys about it. Like, because there are people that can come in here and be like, well, no photos, no videos, didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you know what, man? Do you want to think that way?
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. You go ahead and do that. But for people that are a little bit more open-minded, um, that's who I'll end up, linking with more, I guess, and resonating with more. As a UFO researcher, content creator, I write about it. I mean, I think about it all the time. Like, it is maximum frustration to not be able to present you
Yeah.
guys with like a photograph of this, right? Like, it, and I can't do anything about that at the same time. So I have to just accept it. I just have to accept it. But I am going to take Paul's advice here because sometimes you just get locked into that moment and you just forget everything, right? It's like someone who might be like nervous to do public speaking and they have everything memorized and then they go up and they're just like, duh, they just like, forget all the words. It's like that. Like it's just like I have in my mind how I want to handle a situation like this. Like, okay, I see the object in my mind. I'm going to ask it to do this, blah, 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 while I slowly reach for my cell phone and that I forgot
Yeah.
everything except for the reach for the cell phone. I was just in awe.
That's cool about that. Sandy had a
Can't
good
help
question
it.
about it. She's saying were they spinning on an axis?
No, no, they weren't spinning. Nope, they were stationary. It was just light. Like that. So like the bright. So like it was red, and like the center point was like just a less saturated red, almost white. Right. So very much like what you're seeing here. It's almost like so. The other thing I guess I could say to be as specific as possible is that like the center of it almost seemed like it was more solid than like the surrounding area. The area around the center was more of like a really thick like haze almost of light.
You talk about the center of the light point or the center between the 2 points of light?
The center of the light point.
Okay.
So like if I were to have one of these things in my hand, what it would really look like is it would be like a bright almost like orange becoming white, like just light, like just that's all it is light in the middle, just light. And then around it is this red glow, this haze that is like thick. It's like it looks like if you were to put your hand in it that you would feel it, but it's also like translucent at the same time. Like you would be able to pass through it.
Mhm.
It was you know,
Another thing I had asked Sandy too, just to kind of clarify, like when you say doing a figure eight, it wasn't doing a figure eight with the balls moving like that, like in a circle. He said they would do the figure eight in lockstep together, just to
correct.
kind of give you a fuller image of it.
That's
What he's talking.
exactly what it did. That's exactly what it did. Like, so you could imagine, like, draw a line between those two, right? So now
And
it
they're
looks
and they're
almost
just
like a barbell,
stuck.
right?
Yeah, exactly. The stuck
Imagine a
together.
flying barbell without the middle.
Yep.
Made of red light and plasma or something. I don't know what the hell this thing was, or made of, or but it was intelligent and it did things that
The first thing
our
that
stuff
came to
can't.
my mind was literally Chris Bledsoe's story. Like it's almost identical to what he said he saw over the ridge and everything. And it's fresh in my mind because I had read his book, and then I watched an interview with him a couple of days ago. But then you come up with this, and I was like, man, that's almost in lockstep with what he's saying. Like these
That's
things
really
did.
funny too, because I started reading his book and I haven't gotten to that part yet. I
And
don't even know
you
what you're
should get
talking
to.
about.
He did that show Concrete. It's not called that anymore, but with
Yeah, with
the,
I always forget the
Danny.
guy's name, but I've talked to him before. He's really cool. I
Yeah.
love his show.
So Danny did, yeah, it was really good, and he did an interview with Bledsoe recently, and they went out that night and they were filming with Danny these orange orbs that look exactly like your picture. I mean, exactly. And
And I
they
haven't
showed
seen that yet.
the film. Yeah, they show the his footage that he took on the beach, um, and I
Wow.
was like, wow, that's super interesting. So yeah, maybe you're tapping into something that
Yeah,
Bledsoe's on.
that's
Because
crazy. Like,
he's East Coast too. He's very, he's right not too
yeah,
far from.
yeah, I know where he is. Yeah, yeah. I've actually privately spoken to someone. We had a 3-hour phone conversation to someone that has been well. He's been in Bledsoe's vicinity, we'll say,
Mhm.
and saw some things as well.
I was talking to
Um,
somebody,
yeah,
very important about this as well. Like, actually, I could say the comment because it's not. I don't think there's no classification there, but I can't say who it is. But the first thing that he said, um, that there's a ton of interest in Bledsoe, a ton of interest with a lot of very crazy people that you would never expect. And he addresses it mostly in his book to NASA and CIA, a lot of different people. But one of the things that they brought up that somebody I was talking to that was my friend had said, he goes, "Yeah, we think we're witnessing the creation of a new religion." And I was like,
I've heard that.
That's an interesting way to put that." I was like, "Okay." So, in other words, like the implication to me that I took, I didn't ask any more questions about it, but the implication I took from it was that a similar thing happened during the time of Jesus, during the time of Muhammad, during the time, and these things sprung from it, and they think that's happening again. And I was like, that's a very interesting way to put it.
Well, that makes you wonder too, right? So, like, let's say that is the case. It's like, was this planned by them, whoever they are? Like, if this is this being done in phases? Like, I've heard Tom DeLonge talk about this a lot. Peter
Yeah, he's
Levendo.
constantly talking about, oh, all the religions of the world will come into one. Like even his movie ended with that statement. That was the last line of the Monsters of California movie.
That's a
Imagine
really
all
intense
imagine
thought.
all the religions of the world coming together as one and under basically this umbrella. So maybe that's exactly what we're privileged to be proxy to at this point.
Well, I will say though, with that is that there's obviously going to be some pushback from, for example, like the evangelicals would look at that
Mhm.
as probably very of the Antichrist, or you know what I mean, like that type of thing. But
100%. Yeah. It's going to be a
but
turmoil. Well, I mean,
yeah,
think
I mean,
about
oh,
what was the name that the lady gave to Chris Bledsoe was Hathor, which is an Egyptian pagan goddess, so
yeah, I know a lot about that. The individual that I
yeah.
spoke to on the phone that night went into really deep detail about that particular portion of his story. And what's odd about that, I gotta be careful with how I say this. So this person had gone to see someone that was a medium that is, I guess, well respected in like the intelligence community, or like this is someone that is viewed as being gifted. They don't work at like a psychic shop down the road with like a light in the window that says $5 readings. Like this is
Mhm.
not this is this is something very different. This is someone that that
Not
it's
the
not
long hour
very
medium, yeah.
no, it's not very public.
Yeah.
And there was a name that kept coming through. to this person, and then they went and quote unquote spoke to Chris, and that name had a relation to Hathor. And what was weird about that is that that individual didn't know anything about the Hathor thing. They knew nothing about that. They didn't even know who or what Hathor was. They had no clue, no inclination. So
Yeah.
this medium tells him this name, and that name happened to be something that was linked to that. So it's very, yeah. I don't know what that means, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea, but I know what you're talking about, and I know a lot more about it. I will say that people should really go and look into the more esoteric side of this, like chaos magic and such. I think you guys might find some stuff there that's
Yeah.
interesting. I sort of briefly touched on aspects of that in the Secret Keepers video that I did over on my channel, Cortex Zero, and there's a lot there. I don't know what it means. I don't know ultimately what all of it is. It's just that I see the threads, right? It's like a lot of people that are doing the type of research that I am doing myself, we get led in like a very similar direction, and I
I
don't
think
know
everybody goes
if
through
that's
that.
by design or yeah. It's like it's hard to say. It's hard to say what
Well,
it all means.
this is part of the reason why I blow up Fringe's direct messages so much. I always I always ask him these esoteric questions. So like the Pentagon is going to deny. They're going to put in their verbiage. There's nothing to the extraterrestrial hypothesis basically. Yet by FOIA request and CIA's own self-admission, they have remote viewing programs. They have near-death experience programs. They have mind control programs. I mean, a lot of esoteric. They have full psychic programs. So when you think of it like that, they're eliminating one side of it. So they're maybe this is an admission almost of, okay, yeah, it's not extraterrestrials. Maybe it's interdimensional, or maybe it's a little more spiritual than they like to
You
say.
know, if you think about it though, like interdimensional and extraterrestrial, like they're almost the same thing, right? So, and then when I say that, you could like an interdimensional can still be extraterrestrial because if it's not from this physical plane of Earth, it's still not from Earth, right? Like it's still not from
Dir-
here.
Directly, but I mean, like, imagine if it's something. If it's interdimensional, it could be in the exact plane of Earth, and we just can't see them.
Right, and that's where
Yeah, yeah. It
the
gets kind of
distinction comes in.
yeah, and that's purely semantic. I mean, like, it's really splitting hairs, but I think the purpose of the verbiage in the report was to make it a plausible deniability later on if something does come out in that respect. But I mean, like the fringe conversations we have, like, yeah, they're interdimensional from Earth. Yeah, she's saying that very thing, and I love Fringe to pieces. I hope you guys know that. Like I say it every week
Me too.
in the chat. Um, I think you should have her on the show. I'm going to call you out, Fringe. You should come on the show one day and tell your story. I think people need to hear it again and again just to get it
If
through
she's cool with
their
it,
skulls.
she knows the door is always open. My God, I'll
Every
bring you
every
on
time I
next
see
week.
her in a space, I jump in because I know she's going to say something that's really just
Fringe, how about
profound.
just because the guest that I've been trying to get on for the past couple of weeks, his schedule in life has been a little crazy. No disrespect to him whatsoever. I totally understand because I go through the same thing. Fringe, you're more than welcome to come on next week. We don't have a guest planned as far as I'm aware at the moment. So if you want, if you're up for it, the door is open if you want to come on next week. We'll talk. But we'd love.
Please.
I've been wanting to have her on for like forever. And get some female representation as well because a lot of our
She told
guests.
me not to
Yeah,
call her out, but I have to just because she's so interesting, and I think she's actually it's because you're inspirational to me, friends. Because I think you address things that nobody wants to address, and I love the fact that you're fearless enough to do that.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it's just I'm like that's so perfect, it's so perfect.
That's why her and I get along so
Yeah,
well is because she knows that if she brings up something really disturbing and dark, then I'm gonna
it,
roll up my sleeves and have that
it's a
conversation with her
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not
if she's
afraid
on
to
the
talk
show,
about that.
I wanna be a fourth wheel on that show for sure, 'cause I have
Yeah,
so many
let's
things
do
I
it.
love to
Me,
talk.
you, Digby, and Fringe next week. Let's do it. Fringe, if you're
That
up for it, just DM me and let me know. You don't have to decide now. Obviously, I'm
that would
not
be
trying to put you on the
wonderful.
spot, but we would love to have you on. You're a wealth of knowledge. Um, it seems like she's down. I don't know. Kind of seems like she's down.
I mean, yeah, we're getting blue hearts in the chat, so maybe,
Yeah, yeah, that's
maybe.
right. That's right. Women's History Month represent. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. I don't keep track of which month is what history month, but I just live. I just
It's
live.
all just every month is history of some history month, yeah.
How
No,
long have we
that'd be
been
cool.
going for now?
Like an hour
E
45?
Not bad. I feel like this was a really good episode, up to
Oh,
this point.
yeah, it's been good.
It's been really, really, really good. That's just because you're being so kind. I'm making an exception.
No,
We got
I find her
we
a
got our
wealth of
viewer count
knowledge.
back up too, which is I mean, thank you everybody for coming back
Yeah.
in after our little glitch in the matrix there. That was,
I'll make a
probably Digby's
prediction.
fault.
If Fringe comes on, it'll be the highest viewer count you ever had.
That'd be cool. That'd be really
I
cool, and I think
I bet you it
she
would be.
definitely deserves that. Definitely
Yeah,
deserves that. 'Cause
yeah,
we've had some cool people on, man. We've had Steve Bassett, we've had Vinnie Adams, we've had Michael Masters.
you've been some
We've
good
had some
ones.
really great guests so far. And if Fringe would be the biggest, viewer count,
That
that would say
that's
something,
saying
right?
something. That's saying a lot, yeah.
That'd be really, really cool. I think listen, regardless of how many people show up to that, I feel like that is good that would be an episode where you would have maybe people going back and, like, clipping things, right? Like, making little reels of, like, "Listen to this," and, that's which I
Yeah,
love that. I love when people have done that with our show. It's happened a few times. Sometimes we do it ourselves just because, social
yeah.
media algorithms and such, and it's built into StreamYard as well, and there's other programs and sites you can use, but if you guys ever think that we say anything interesting or something that's worth debate, you're always, always free
Chop it
to
up,
take a
clip it, put
clip
it
from the
out there.
show
Yeah.
and use it as long as, you just mention who we are. That's totally cool. Totally, totally, totally cool. It would just be an enlightening conversation for many unfamiliar with abductees. You're right, Sandy. And you guys know, like, we want to get as many experiencers on this show as possible. There was that gentleman that I met in person who I delivered his couch that wanted to come on the show. He hasn't said a word to me since that conversation. I think he's a little
Mm,
nervous to come on, which is
maybe.
normal. It's normal. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
If he's watching, door's still open. And I know where you live.
I will
Technically,
literally come to your house, yeah.
I will come to your house. And if you want to talk in person or do a show in person like that, if you'd rather not do it live, and just do like an in-person interview, I own a tripod. We can do that. I have ring lights. We can make it look nice. No, seriously. Yeah,
That would be great.
I feel like it's the biggest data point moving into the future
It
as
is.
experiencers.
It's the most personal. I mean, so even though, like, the Pentagon eliminates, okay, yeah, everything you're seeing in the sky is a lie. The one thing they can't eliminate is people like friends with personal hands-on experience. Like, how do you explain that, and how do you literally tell them they're just imagining things? It's her story is amazing, and I hope she comes on and shares it with the world again.
Yeah, there's a lot there that she could talk about that,
Oh yeah, yeah.
comes with a warning label.
Hmm.
It's not all love and light out here. Uh, but that's part of the
Nope.
data. You have to talk about it. You have to. Like there are people who live the kumbaya close encounters of the third kind Steven Spielberg version of this. And then there are the people that live the pseudo fourth kind Nome, Alaska story. Obviously that story the movie's fake,
No,
but
but it was very well done, I thought, as far as the expression of that, like, with what it was
I've
supposed to be.
seen I've seen hypnotic regressions that,
Mhm.
I didn't see somebody like floating in the air, but I've
No,
seen
but, like,
people, like end up
the
on the floor
trauma.
crying and yeah,
Yeah,
freaking out and yes, the reason it happened in Nome, Alaska in the movie is because there were a mass string of disappearances that did happen
yeah.
around the time that they talk about that did go unexplained. And at that
To this
time, there
day.
were a lot of UFO accounts
Yeah,
and sightings that did happen.
And
Um,
still to this day, I mean, like,
yep.
Joe McMonagle was talking about his, viewing in that mountain in Alaska, Mount not Herman, or is it Mount Herman? The the
Uh, hold
the
on.
big one, the big mountain in the Alaska Triangle, like, uh,
There's Denali, Saint Elias, Mount Hayes. Mount Hayes.
Mount
Is it Mount
Hayes, that's the
Hayes?
one. Yeah, Mount
Okay.
Hayes, that's the one.
Alaska's
Um,
beautiful. Jesus.
so, like, so McGonagall viewed Mount Hayes, and he said he's like the number one remote viewer for anybody that doesn't know Joe McMonagle,
That's brilliant.
kind of the guy that started the whole shebang. But he recently did an interview, which I hadn't seen him do an interview in a long time. But he was on the Shane Ryan show talking about this, and it was amazing. Like this guy's, um, he's letting it all out because he's getting really old. So he's starting to be like, yeah, I saw this, I saw this. So more and more is coming from him, and I expect more before he passes on. So
There is on. So I saw on. Looks like it's on Apple Podcasts. Uh, Secrets of Mount Hayes, the Alaska Triangle. It's from the. It's like I guess the Alaska Triangle. There's a show on the Travel Channel.
yeah,
Um, An eyewitness shares startling video evidence of extraterrestrial activity in Fairbanks, Alaska, and a UFO hunter flies over Alaska's highest mountain in search of the secret underground alien base. Yeah, this is the one. Yep, Mount Hayes. Um,
there's a
you know,
lot of mystery around that place. It's like Mount
and
Shasta in California, but it's just why
yeah,
are these places secret
absolutely.
spots, you know?
And the remote viewing aspect of this, right? So like I take part in Astral, Tyler's remote viewing
Every
spaces
week. Yeah.
every week on Thursday, and I took a little break from the remote viewing part of it myself, like doing the targets and such over the last couple weeks, just because things have been rough, and I just was like, I just didn't feel like doing it. But um, I did really. If you actually like lay out all of my viewings and go and look at it, there's some really interesting things that were noticed. Aside from certain instances in which I got the target, you know, not spot on, but pretty well, like
I
pretty
saw I
close.
saw one of the ones you did, and I was like, "Wow, that's really close." Like, you were
I
just a few
surprised myself.
colors yeah, you were a few colors off. I'm like, if you if you tilted it this way and then colored that part in, it'd be perfect, it was really close.
Yeah,
I
there
think
were
it's a
some
it was
things there that
a
were really
a
strange.
pipe spiral thing or whatever it was.
Yes, yes.
I was
But
like, "Man."
one of the participators that we all know as G, she's a total sweetheart, and sometimes she's even here in the chat. She picked up on something with her own viewings that I have to go and look at, but I think I'll probably find this. She was noticing that she was getting like bleed through from like the target that would eventually come like a week later, right? And her and I
Oh,
had one where like I had hit on a target really well, but the week before her her
wow.
viewing session was kind of off, but it actually picked up a bunch of shit
On the
that was
next
in
one.
mine.
Oh,
Like
that's
it's
weird.
right, like and then I was getting bleed through from like other people's for that target. Like we just started noticing things like, hey, there was one I drew like three wiggly lines like in a very specific place on the paper, and it was like the exact spot and formation that she drew in hers from like the week before, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
So remote viewing definitely something that needs to be taken seriously. I mean, we're doing this every
Well,
week and
that's the
we're
CIA takes
collecting
it very
data.
seriously. Yeah,
Right.
for many,
Statisticians
many years. Yep.
have even said that like it's beyond chance at this point.
And
Like it's
yeah,
obvious.
because and think about this too, like, when you talk about the time aspect of it, if she's seeing the thing from the following week, they could do remote viewings that are millions of years in the past or millions of years in the future, like, there's no time constraint on that, which is very, very
Ah,
interesting.
you
Very
notice
interesting.
that, right? So
Yeah,
somebody could go back and you know, I mean, think of any major world event,
yeah,
and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it right all the time, but if if you see something really specific
mhm.
that you then find out was rumored and you didn't know about it beforehand, kind
I
of
I
makes you
watched
wonder.
I watched a live remote viewing, there's an institute, I can't remember the name to save my life, but there's a young girl, um, maybe late teens, early 20s. She was doing a live remote viewing, and they put her in the ocean, where the approximate location of Atlantis is what the guy was saying, but she didn't know any of this. All he gave we gave her coordinates, and he goes, we gave her a time frame, and I think the time frame was like 500 years ago or something like that. She's doing it live on camera. She's drawing on a board. She's like, I kind of see. I don't know. It's weird. She's like, everything's hazy, and um, she goes, "There's kind of like a pyramid structure." She goes, "I'm not sure if it's a pyramid or a mountain," but she goes, "Oh, I'm underwater. That's why everything's hazy. I can see things floating around." And I'm like going, "Wow, that was really like," because the spot they had was underwater for an
Whoa.
actual underwater. Like they thought maybe a pyramid, but it was really a mountain. But
Paul, if
uh,
you give me latitude
super
and
interesting.
longitude coordinates, like just right now as we're talking here, dude, I'm not gonna know where the hell that is off the top
I
of
would
my
have
head,
no
right?
idea. Yeah, she
Unless
pulled
you're
it right
like,
out. Like
unless
you're
you're like,
a perfect geographer, yeah,
yeah,
cartographer.
right. If you're a cartographer, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody out there that
Oh, it was
is
crazy that
that well
she was picking
trained,
that up. Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
I highly, highly doubt that this girl is one of those people. Right? Like, that's after years and years and
Years,
years,
yeah.
of that type of
Well,
work.
she was part of that program, and the guy was like, "Yeah, she's one of our best." They had this other older guy gentleman doing the same thing, and he picked it up that it was underwater as well, which I
That's
thought was really
incredible.
interesting. Yeah. But, they're like,
Wow.
"Yeah, some kind of pyramid structure, everything's hazy." Like, the way she even brought it out, like, "It's hazy, like, I'm having trouble seeing and everything," and that's because of the silt. And I'm like going, "Wow, okay, okay." But, yeah,
Strange.
it was super interesting, yeah, but in real
That's
time,
really
live
strange.
on a channel, a YouTube channel. I have to
So,
find that. I'll send
yeah,
it to
yeah,
you.
definitely look that up and, send it to me or, post it on X and
Yeah.
tag us and all those fun things. So, we're about 2 hours in, so I'm gonna wrap up here with the usual final segment, but guess what?
Speculation station.
Today, I get to hit
Nice.
Speculation Station.
Oh, man. It's been a good episode, I think.
Yeah, I
And
enjoyed it.
without I did, like, no preparation for it, literally on purpose, because I wanted this to just be directly from me and from you. Um, and I think we did really well. We have 250 people watching right now, apparently, so thank you, everybody that's been here, that hopped back in after we had our little hiccup there or disconnected. That means a lot to us that you came back and hung around with us. Now, Speculation Station, if you've never been here before, we like to leave the audience with something to think about
A
for the rest of the day.
speculation.
Paul,
Yeah.
I summon you.
I actually I got one that I just thought about when we were talking about some of these things. So,
Perfect.
and this is actually probably if Fringe does come on next week, which would be great, maybe she could address some of these things. But given that the Pentagon paper was specific on the extraterrestrial hypothesis only, with really specific verbiage, um, and the fact that they are mapping DMT trips and ayahuasca and they're mapping the what they call the DMT verse or the mental verse or whatever they want to call it. But uh, and they're seeing machine elves and those things like kind of the short alien-esque kind of feel. They're seeing draconians apparently in there, like different creatures in the DMT world, and they're physically mapping it now, like a big one long program. What is the tie between the mentality where a DMT trip takes you and the UAP phenomena? Is there a connection there? Is UAP more spiritual than we like to realize? And does it have to do with some of those DMT trips that we have? Can there be a link?
Oh, I love that question because it ties into that little mini project I did that one night where I was thinking about exactly this, and I gave it a name. I called it the cognitive universe hypothesis, and I want to make a video on it eventually. So perhaps we should talk about that next week if Fringe gets to come on with us, and I'll be able to maybe like pull some clips from that little round table to throw into the video. It's the idea that When we go to sleep, we dream. When people ingest dimethyltryptamine, they seem to get shot into like a completely different universe.
It's
And then we
weird,
also
yeah.
have waking life, but what if all of those constructs and realms are all just as real as one another? It's just that this is
Well,
the one that we experience the most, so we naturally deem it real.
there's one really cool story, and I'll just be real brief with it, but, like, there was a guy that did a he would take regular DMT journeys, and there was this purple girl. He always saw a carnival, and there was this purple girl that was always following him around and joking and poking fun of him and always said, "Oh, I love him. I love you. I love you
I
so
know
much." Like,
this
she was in
story.
love with him. Well, he had never told anybody about this because they were all his really personal stories. His friend wanted to try him DMT, so he goes and his friend tries it in his presence. He goes, "I want you with me just in case I freak out." So the guy does DMT, and then he's freaking out. He's like, he got. Then he says out loud, he goes, "Man, just calm down. It's okay. It's okay. You'll get there." And he goes, "Oh, oh, okay." Then everybody like stop. He goes, "Everybody knows you're here, man." Like talking to his friend, while the other guy's tripping. He goes, "Man, there's some girl here that's mad that you have a girlfriend now in the real world." Like he was telling him stories about his trips from his DMT trip, and I was like, "That is so bizarre, man." Like saw the same purple girl and like, "Yeah, she loves you, man. Oh my gosh, she's in love with you. She's really upset that you have a girlfriend now in the real world." So stories like that are just freaky.
I know that story,
It
and
was so good.
it was on, Tales from the Trip, I
Yeah,
think.
yep.
There's
It
a
was
YouTube channel, and they bring on comedians and actors and
yep.
stuff to talk about, like, all their crazy drug-fueled adventures, and
This
that
is
was
his
one of them. And I'm like,
purple DMT girlfriend.
"Whoa, man." Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
freaky.
yeah. That's freaky as hell, right? It's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, so that would imply that that's a place you went to where there are people or intelligences
100%.
there." And that's what my hypothesis is all about, is that
So could it be that
they're
there's a link?
all yes, not only that, but there's that all of these constructs are actually just as real as each other, but they're also filled with intelligences, conscious
Yeah,
beings that you can interact with. That is exactly
yeah,
what I thought about, and I think that's definitely a great question to ponder for the end of the show. Paul, thank you
perfect.
so much for being on with me, man. Like, I could have done it alone, but let's be honest. It's really great when you got 2, right? Like, you
You
have
can
ideas.
bounce off ideas. Yeah,
I'm not gonna get nearly as stuck. I'm sure I could handle I mean, shout out to Darren, Exo Academian, because obviously he does 2 different shows, but on his one, it's literally just him, and he just I guess I don't know if I guess he types it up and then he reads it, but I just absolutely love his work. So, yeah,
yeah,
good for some, maybe not for others, but I think in this particular instance, this was a really, really interesting episode. I'm still gonna have my experience on front of my mind, probably the whole rest of the day and year at this point. And to everybody that's been in the chat, thank you so much
yeah.
for
Radium,
sticking with us
Sandy,
through our
invisible
little
light. Stream.
hopefully we'll be able to get Fringe on next week. Digby will be back. We're gonna try to do this roundtable situation. If you
I
guys
love
leave a
it.
like, all of the usual content creator requests that come at the end of the show, subscribe and such. But you know what? If you really, really enjoyed it, and you get a moment to leave a comment or anything or review, if you have any, critiques, even something you didn't like, that's cool too. Something that we can improve upon to make your viewing experience a little bit better each week. We're always looking to do that. Check out New Paradigm Media Group. It's New Paradigm Media Group.com, but it's specifically newparadigmmg.com. A lot of cool things coming down the pipeline. And obviously my YouTube channel too, Cortex Zero. I'm approaching, I think, like 7,000 subscribers. Uh, Never thought that would happen in a million years. It's so cool.
Check
My
out
new
his
video,
documentaries. They're great.
I appreciate that, man.
I
I got
love
a
them.
new one coming out soon about
I'm so psyched
consciousness,
for that.
non-locality, and I'm gonna start doing more like just regular YouTube content too, where it's like if there's news, I want to try to cover it in a video. I want to basically
Mhm.
swamp myself with this work and and just give this all that I have until I no longer have to go clock in at my day job anymore, and I can make this my focus and take my ass to the moon.
Damn right.
do my do my best. But Paul, I love you,
I
man.
got
Thank you
I
for being here. Thanks everybody.
love you
This has
too, buddy.
been episode 24 of UAPOD, the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. Thanks for being here with us. We'll see you next week, 1:30. I only did it at 3:30 today because I wanted to sleep in. And so I decided to start a little bit later. But we love you guys. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Ciao.